Mary was trained as a psychologist and has worked as a counsellor and a mediator for couples and family relationships. She served in children and family health in rural areas of New South Wales and also with the family court in Sydney. In fact, Mary has been in the field of family relationships and trying to improve them for a remarkable 38 years, including as the CEO of Relationships Australia for Canberra and region for the past 17 years, a position that she currently holds. Mary's also been the chair of the National Board of Relationship Australia during that time. She has some serious learned wisdom to dish out to us, and so please welcome Mary Pekin.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak to you tonight. It's a bit daunting following what John was talking about, and that was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much, Elliot. I imagine we're going to get food soon, and so you'll all be clinking and clanking, and I'll try to keep talking. One thing I was prompted to remember about how difficult it is to sometimes sit up straight and do mindfulness practice, I did hear, and I have been practicing, if you just put your facial muscles into the shape of a smile, you will immediately probably feel better. And I think there are many things that we're going to hear tonight, which I think that was news to me about, I don't know, a month ago. And since then, I just remember that every now and then and do that, and something relaxes, and somehow my emotions lift. One of the things I've learned over these wonderful 38 years that I've had the privilege of working in this area of relationships, which are our most precious asset. If we ask everybody what is their most precious asset, most people will say it's relationships. Their family, their partners, their loving relationships are what we value most in the world. And so I have felt very lucky to be able to work in that area with people for a long time. But one thing I've learned is our emotions are a mystery. They're still a mystery to me. They're uncontrollable, no matter how much I try to de-stress the boiling point. I can't predict when the bubbles are going to start coming up. I've got some hang of it, but in the end of the day, we've all got emotions that flood us, that are difficult to manage, and I think that's one of our life's journeys, is understanding ourselves, let alone understanding our partners and our children and the communities that we live in. Anyway, I'm digressing. I think there's four things I wanted to say tonight. Firstly, that waiting to de-stress at the boiling point will be too late. So if it gets to the boiling, it's all right for water and things in cooking to get to the boiling point, but for people, getting to the boiling point is probably dangerous and not a good plan. So if we're walking around feeling like I'm at the boiling point, it's too late. We need to get good at recognising when we're starting to heat up. And in relationships, knowing when the temperature's getting above safe, or if we get above this point, we'll all probably know the times when, if we keep talking to each other when we're above this heated point, nothing good is going to happen next. It's time to stop. So there is a point we all need to recognise in ourselves when I'm getting head up to the point where I need to do something like what we've heard tonight, and we certainly need to know it in our relationships, because if we have too many boiling points as a person and in our relationships, we're in big trouble. And just to be a little bit sombre, today's the National Day of Remembrance for Victims of Family Violence. Some people may or may not be aware of that, but today's the day nationally where we remember the people who've been killed, hurt, abused in family, intimate relationships. So we are talking, if stress is, as we've heard, it's a normal thing for us to have, we can't avoid it. It's going to come into our relationships, it's coming into our lives, but if we don't find ways of managing it, it will kill relationships eventually, and it will have really bad effects on our health and mental health. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know. The second thing, the second thing I wanted to say is and the third thing is to give you a few little hints of what I've learnt over the years about relationships and my favourite relationship tips. And finally, just to let you know about some of the services. People may not have heard of Relationships Australia. Just out of interest, can I have a show of hands of who's heard of us? Okay, so about a third of the room, which means that 2/3 of people haven't heard. We used to be called Marriage Guidance Australia. We've been around for 60 years in Canberra, about 70 years in Australia. We started as a voluntary organisation when people started noticing that the soldiers coming back from World War II were having trouble adjusting back into their family life. So volunteers got together and started doing counselling for returned soldiers and their families. So I don't know if that helps, but what our service does is we'll be when we're hearing about the changes you might want to make as an individual to manage stress, or as a family, or as in a relationship. If it occurs to you, most people come to us when they've tried everything else. They've tried their friendships, they've tried whatever they can think of to try to help their relationship, and it doesn't work. They come to us as a last resort. It'd be great if people can. If you feel like you want a third person to help, listen, walk with you on the journey of change, help you figure out what's your best way of working out to change, because what works for your neighbour or your sister or your mother won't work for you. Everybody needs their own unique individual solution of what's going to work in your relationship. Then a counsellor or a mediator would be a person you could turn to. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but anyway. So just to go back to that point of finding the early warning signs, most of us when we come to stress, we'll either fight or flight. You know, that's a well-researched response. We'll either try to avoid it, bury it, run away from it, avoid it, or we'll stand our ground. Now, there are good ways of doing that. That will be, that sometimes we'll avoid it, and that will be wise. Sometimes we'll stand our ground, and that will be wise. The problems we'll get if we always avoid conflict or if we always fight. That again, those two things won't help relationships. We've got two people in a relationship too, so that's another factor. If I'm a person who, when I get conflict or when I come up against stress in a relationship, I want to talk about it, but my partner wants to think about it or, take some action, we're going to have trouble because our styles won't match. I'll want to talk, he or she will want to act. So that's our third stress. So already we've got the stress, and now the relationship's got the problem because we have different styles. So I think one of my favourite things I've learnt over the years is we have to be good in relationships at giving in. Giving in is a very, very important skill to be able to say your way of doing it, your way of thinking about things, I respect because you're the person I have chosen to spend my life with. So I need to respect your way, even if it's different from mine. And I also need to stand up for myself. So if I'm always going to do it your way, if I get stuck in always giving in, that's going to be problematic too. Because I also need to be good at speaking up and standing my ground. Not standing my ground in a way that's going to destroy you or hurt you or abuse you or disrespect you, but I also need to be able to say, this is important to me. I know it's something that you disagree with, but let's talk about that or let's work something out. So they're two of my favourite skills. Okay. I love it when there's questions, but they're coming after. Alrighty. Now, what else can I tell you on my first page? I've already lost my spot. Okay, I've said about two people. And then there's families. So I've just been talking about two people. Now we add young people, children, aunties, cousins, grandparents, mothers-in-law, extended family. So, you know, because probably, I don't know, all the things we've mentioned about things that bring stress into our lives, one of the hardest things is our relationships. They're the thing that help us manage stress. So a loving relationship will be a refuge for us and help us talk about and get the life we want. But they're also things that cause a lot of stress. If you are Kids Helpline, which is a great service for young people that they can either log on to or ring up. The biggest thing that young people want to talk about is problems in their life is family relationships. So these relationships that we love so much always also, you know, anyway. That's right. So, my point was, when you bring relationships with children into it as well, and then the skills that you need about being able to guide as well as, you know, help their independence. Parenting and being in a family and being in a relationship is highly skilled behaviour. Okay, one of the things that, one of my favourite things that I've learned, which is a little bit connected with what John was talking about managing stress, there's a lot of research that tells us that we need to have a ratio of 5 to 1 in a relationship. So 5 good things for every bad thing that happens, basically. So it's okay for there to be problems in relationship, and we need skills at learning how to identify early warning signs and to negotiate and talk and wait and all those things. But we need to have a balance of 5 positive things happening before we can address conflict safely. So what that means is, what we have to be good at in relationships is having fun, appreciating. So if we have got, you know, we need to be able to go for, have I said, if I'm going to raise a problem with my partner or my children, have I let them know 5 other things that I love about what's going on between us? Because if I'm not doing that, I'm not laying a strong foundation for dealing with the hard stuff. So that's a pretty well-researched. People that are in long-term happy relationships will say that the ratio is something like 5 to 1. For every problem they've got, they can think of 5 things they appreciate. For everything they want to say to their partner or their children about what's difficult and what's not working, they have said 5 other positive things. So it's not an exact science, but it's like this. There has to be that many, much more good things than there are bad things happening. So that's been a useful guide to me over the years to help people go. Sometimes before you start talking about all the things that are going wrong in our relationship, or all the things that are going wrong even in my life, before I start thinking about that, I have to be good at thinking about what is going right and what I appreciate, and I have to be good at telling my partner or my children or whoever what I appreciate about what's going right. So I think that's my favourite. When I think of de-stressing the boiling point, I think of don't get to the boiling point. Get good at knowing your early warning signs, your partner's, your children's early warning signs, and make